Welcome to the Hibbing Economic Development Authority regular meeting agenda. Today is Monday, June 24th, 2024. We have everybody in attendance tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Additions, deletions, approval of the agenda. Can we get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Kivila and seconded by Mayor Hyduk. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. Approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority for May 30th, 2024. Can we get a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
Motion
I'll
made by
second.
Member Schweiberger, seconded by
I'll second.
Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Onto the consent agenda. Number 1, affirm the Economic Development Loan Fund as of May 31st, 2024, in the amount of $1,279,843.67. Number 2, approve the disbursements for the month of May in the amount of $196,150.03. Number 3, set the next regular meeting of Heda for Monday, July 15th, 2024, at 5 p.m. in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber. Number 4, set the next Heda working session for Monday, July 15th, 2024, following the regular meeting in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber. And number 5, set the special Heda meeting to approve the BP number 02 for the AMGS expansion project on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 4 p.m. in the City Hall Council Chamber. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read and published.
Motion made by Member Hoffman Sockman,
Support.
supported by Vice President Durenas. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to note that August 7th, Wednesday, August 7th, is a regular council meeting. So this would be a brief half-an-hour meeting prior to that 5 p.m. council meeting to approve just that bid pack. So I wanted to just make a note of that and see if that was,
That was
make
August
sure you all,
7th?
yes,
Yeah.
on August 7th.
At 4 p.m. Okay, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Presentations. Betsy, would you like to start us off?
Yes, I would, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight, our first presentation is the AMGS presentation by Kraus Anderson. We do have Pete Avenen and Todd Erickson here in the council chambers to talk through the schedules. I will say that there is going to be some additional conversations after this, but we had asked, or you had asked as a board, to have them start attending our meetings and keep us updated on this project, so they're here to do that.
Yes,
Hello.
thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. As Betsy said, my name is Pete Avenen with Kraus Anderson Construction Company out of our Duluth office. Roger.
How we doing?
Good, how are you? So I'll be the project manager through the pre-con process. So basically through that early July timeframe, early August timeframe. And then Todd will take over as the construction project manager. Run it through.
Hi, Todd Erickson, Senior PM. I work with Pete. Thank you. Hi, my name is Todd Erickson, Senior Project Manager with Kraus Anderson. So Pete and I will be working together for the next while before the transition. So thank you.
Okay, so tonight's agenda is going to be the budget for the GMP estimate amount, so where we're sitting currently, and we'll go over some scheduled dates, and you can ask any questions that you have. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, and I can try to answer those for you. And then we do have a project directory attached at the end of that for your use for future. Just the whole project team is listed there, so design team. Okay, jumping right into the budget. So, as you guys probably know, the total project funding approved by the IRRB was $9 million even. So that was a good win there. Our original design development estimate was $10 million. And then we did a value management process, and those have been applied now to that budget. So some changes were made, some deletions were made, some things were created as an alternate during bid package 2. So if the bids come in good, you could accept it at that time if you have the funds to do so. So with that, the current estimated GMP amount is 8.7 million. So that's what we're moving forward right now, and that's what we're gonna shoot for the final GMP at bid pack 2. So at the 8.7 or less. So how we get to the 9 million, there are some additional costs outside of construction, which we call owner soft costs. So design fees, special inspections, furnitures, fixtures, equipment, those kinds of items. So that total is roughly about 3,000 or 300,000. And that's how we get to our 9 million total project costs. So a $0 alignment required at this time. That's a really good sign. There is an asterisk there up on that 8.7 that does include both an owner contingency and a KA construction contingency of 5% each. That's roughly about 397,000 per contingency. Any questions on the budget right now? Yep, go
So
ahead.
with the deduct of 13.3 million, does it still meet all the needs for the owner and to grow the business?
Yeah, we wanted to make sure through that process that both the end user and the owner, Heda, had a good spec building, and the end user, AMGS, still met their needs to run their manufacturing facility. So the alternates that we created were more aesthetic, not so much how they use there for productions.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move right into schedule. Okay, so I've gotten this broken out into 3 different slides. So we have bid package 1 that we did already and kind of the KA construction timeline. Then we have bid package 2, and then we have the post bid package 2 schedule. So we'll start with bid pack 1 and contract timeline. As I said, we did bid pack 1 already for the pre-engineered metal building. And we did get that bid package approved for Radatich. So we're moving forward with that currently. The IRRB approved funding, that was the 9 million. And you guys approved bid pack 1. So tonight is just an update for you guys on the 24th here. And plus, I think you have a signed contract for us to take back with us.
Yep, I was just texting Candy.
All right, sounds good. So we'll grab that, we'll bring it to our office, get it signed, and then get you guys a hard copy back. Okay, and that's just the base contract, not the GM. Okay? And then we do have a new date here and item. And this is where Betsy kind of did a preamble of further discussions will be had with both the owner group and the IRRB, is the limited authorization to proceed with the pre-engineered metal building. And the whole reason for that is because of the long lead time of that building, which is about 16 weeks. So the sooner that we can order that building, the sooner it shows up, and the sooner we can get it erected and be ready for AMGS to start installing their equipment. So it's kind of a critical date. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that offline with the group. Yep.
Part of the reason that we were able to have the limited authorization for the pre-engineered metal building is those buildings, the design of the remainder of the building was dependent on the pre-engineered. Like, the design team couldn't start foundation design because they didn't know what the reactions of that building were. So they get that information, and then kind of the spatial layout for the client with how he wants to organize and run his business with his overhead cranes, all of that had to get designed into the pre-engineered metal building before the rest of the design could proceed. So that's why that piece is fortunate and able to be complete now, ahead of the rest of the package.
Good point, Todd. Thank you. So our goal is to order that building by the end of the week, and that'll be determined with our further discussions offline.
So, I have one question for you here.
Yeah.
I know I think both KA and Raditich are both Nucor dealers, aren't you? So who's ordering it? Is it going through them or through you, or?
It would be going through Raditich.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were actually the ones who bid the bid package one with Nucor as their supplier.
Okay.
Good question. And then we jump forward to August. So that'll be post bid package 2. This is why in the contract time. And that's when we'll be talking about the GMP amendment, and that's where Betsy mentioned that short half-hour time before the city council meeting to approve the bid package 2. All right, so bid package 2 timeline.
Madam President, if I may?
Go ahead.
Pete, the KA Heda GMP amendment fully executed, so we will have both the bid package and the GMP at that meeting to fully execute that night?
Correct.
Okay, just to make sure that we're all in sync.
What is in bid package 2?
Bid package 2 is everything for the project except for the pre-engineered metal building.
Okay.
So bid pack 1 was just the building shell, and the rest of the project is in bid pack 2. So your concrete, finishes, openings, dirt work, landscaping, all of it.
Okay. Parking lots, all that. Yep.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so bid pack 2 timeline, we've been working through that already. So the ad for bid went out, maybe you saw it in the paper, and that was a 2-week runtime to meet the public bidding laws. We received the construction documents, now completed 100% construction documents from Whitseth and their team, this past Friday, June 21st. So now this week coming up, 24 through 28, Todd and I will be working on compiling the bid package to actually send out to contractors. So we have the plans and specs, and now we have to put together work scopes for the different divisions and the front-end documents to make sure that we're following all those public bidding laws. In that meantime, the owners group has the plans and specs, and they're reviewing that and just double checking, so almost triple checking to make sure that all of the comments got included in those documents. And so that's happening simultaneously this week. So then July 1st, we're looking to release the bid package out. So for any bidders listening tonight, be ready for that to hit the street. And then we'll be looking to do a pre-bid meeting. So we like to send out the bid package, give them a couple days to look at it, and then have a pre-bid meeting for them to ask any questions or any concerns that they might have with the design or schedule or anything like that. And that'll be here in this building downstairs. And then last day for questions for the bid will be 15 July. And the reason for the last day of questions is if there's anything that requires an addendum, we have to have enough time to put that together and get it back out before the bids are due on 18 July. So again, bids will be due publicly opened here at this building downstairs at 2 p.m. And I usually allow about 2 hours with that many bid packages. We're looking close to 25 bid packages probably, so it's a lot of bids to read. So me and Todd will bring lots of water and be ready to speak. Any questions on bid pack 2 timeline?
So really, you'll have about 12 weeks. If the bid is approved that day, or they're open and it's awarded at the next council meeting, they're gonna have about 12 weeks. Because 4 weeks is gonna disappear here, from the building being approved to when these bids are open and the next council meeting. So they'll have about 12 weeks to have their work ready for that building to be delivered and be ready to put up. That'd be about right?
Well, I'll hit that in the next section.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to make sure I got the timeline right for you. So after bid pack 2, the bids come in, we read them aloud. You'll have apparent lows, just by reading the bids and whoever the low bidder is. Then Todd and I will go through and what we call bid tabulate, make phone calls, make sure they have everything included in their bids, and making sure that they're in compliance with all the contract documents. And then we'll create a recommendation letter that we'll then present to you for approval, and that's on that August 7th date. And once you approve that, we'll move into issuing the contracts to the subs that next week. And then we'd mobilize on site with the earthwork contractor on 19 August. So that's when we would actually start construction. Then from there, we have roughly about 8 weeks
All right.
before the building shows up to get our building foundations in and ready for the building.
Madam President? So did you say 20-some bids you're anticipating? Is that what you're looking at?
So it's about 25 different
25,
work
okay.
scopes.
So I guess my question is, do you anticipate good competitive bids? Because we're kind of in the height of construction season right now.
Yeah, so we'll be looking for 2 to 3, maybe more in certain work scopes, competitive bids. We got really good documents from the design team. They did a really nice job putting that together and working with the owner group to make sure everything's incorporated, so should have really good bids coming
Good.
in.
Thank you.
Good question.
Can I add?
Yep.
In addition to the public bid that Pete mentioned, we also have a platform, a bidding platform called Building Connected. Through Building Connected, we will invite 250, 300 different vendors to look and see your project. So for those that don't see it as it was advertised, we also proactively shotgun it out to all these different places so people can see it. They'll get emails and notified.
Right, right.
Thanks, Todd. So once construction starts, we have, like I said, that 8 weeks before the pre-engineered shows up on site so that we can start that erection. And the reason why that critical date is we have an owner install of equipment. So maybe owner is the wrong term, but AMGS, the end user of the building, they need to start installing their equipment by April 1st. So as long as we have the building up for him and ready to go, he should be able to install his equipment. And as he's installing, we'll be finishing up our finishes, drywall paint, finishing our electrical and mechanical connections, those kinds of things, coordinating with his equipment install, because our power has to come to his equipment for his hookups. So there will be some coordination going on there through the month of April to get to our substantial completion. So at substantial completion, what we're looking to see is the building complete, inside and out. And then we'll have a punch list and cleanup time frame through the month of May. And then once the weather allows in the spring, sometimes it comes early, sometimes not so early. But once we get to that point, we can bring our earthwork contractor back with his subcontractors to finish up the asphalt paving and any landscaping. Because we just won't have enough time this fall to get all that. We'll prep as much as we can and get it usable for AMGS to start his business, so. Or should I say, continue his business. So, with that, is there any other questions?
No, I like the timeline.
Sounds
I
good.
think before, you've got a good, 6 weeks before you hit December roughly. You get into your snowier weather and
That's very good.
Good. And like I said, their project directory is there, just for your reference, so you know who's all on the team. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll be seeing you monthly. I think we'll do monthly updates for you where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to break down and,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
that'd be good, thanks. Because we've got Sherry to sign her stuff real quick for you. While we switch out.
good, simple, straightforward.
Yep.
They're coming around you, Madam President. Yeah. Do you have a blue pen? Yeah,
Here's a
there you go. Just attending to a little housekeeping. Give us 2 seconds here. When you're ready for me to
Yes.
continue? Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
item number 2 is the owner's representative for this AMGS project, Bar Engineering. When we started working on this project, the IRRR had requested that we bring on an owner's representative to stand in for me when I'm not present for the project. And that happened last week when I was on vacation. So, John Maxwell has been covering and also being sort of the second set of eyes as the gentleman from KA discussed tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. That we are working through the design review of the documents for construction bidding and those sorts of things, and bringing on an owner's representative to look through those with me and talk through the finer points has been what Bar Engineering is doing. This is covered by the grant that we got for the site development prep grant from the IRRR. So they are paying for this for us. So Bar Engineering's quote was, I believe, $89,900. And that will be an item for approval here, 2B coming up. So at this point, I just wanted to have that document in front of you so you could see it and understand what the cost would be for and what we're looking to receive from that scope of work. What questions do you have on that, if any?
That was one of the things the IRRB requested, correct?
Yeah.
On all their projects. I just want to, because I know we questioned it, but they said they do it on all their projects. Kind of request.
To me, it's kind of a little bit of a, and I know the IRRB requests that they're paying for it and everything. I'm not beating anybody up here, but it's kind of almost like the department, our redundancy department, because we hired KA to be the manager, and this is almost like hiring a manager not at risk. We already have a manager at risk, so we're like, it's a big paycheck for that service, which should be being completed by KA. And it's almost like we're saying, we don't trust you, KA. We gotta keep an eye on your books, we got everything else, and we're spending 90 grand to do it. It's, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what Bar did, I just see it as a redundant item. Because you're gonna have, if they go out there during inspection day, all of a sudden, we're gonna have more inspectors out there than we do guys working on the job. So it seems like a little bit of a reach for me because these soft costs are gonna start killing some of these projects. As you can see, there isn't a bolt put in by any of these soft costs. No. I understand that we're probably stuck with it, but I'd rather have the IRRB have money to put in other projects too, so that's just my statement.
I talked with Matt, and we went round and round. We've got our engineering, we've got many components because we're a full-service city, unlike a lot of their projects.
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. This is their comfort level, and
I just,
Yeah.
being in construction all my life, I've watched, as the years go on, we have more inspectors and we get less work done. It's just not, it hasn't been fared well, so.
So was there anyone else that was looked at as far as potential difference in price?
I had asked for a couple of smaller quotes, asked a couple, different firms, and some declined, but I didn't go real far to do a full RFP process on this one. I did get a couple of different quotes. One of them came in, sakes, I can't remember. It was well over this cost. But I didn't go real far, I just kind of went locally. So,
Is this something we've had to do in the past as well?
well, this is our first project of this sort, so no, at least from my perspective. And my hope is, to Roger's point and, you know, to John's question, that going forward, if we do more of these, they'll learn to, you know, that our city does have the capacity to manage this, and that we, you know, will do this going forward. So I'm almost viewing this as sort of a, you know, a proving ground to do this well and work in collaboration, and then hopefully going forward we can, or maybe we'll see benefit from the staff side as well, in that, no, we're always gonna build a soft cost for an owner's rep in there, and then they just, you know, meet with me bi-weekly or some such, right? It just depends on how this goes through. So, you know, willing to try it both ways.
What would your meetings really be about?
Meaning,
Yeah, if you have a bi-weekly meeting.
oh, with an owner's rep?
Yeah.
Well, then I wouldn't attend any of the meetings with the construction manager at risk and the design team. As an owner's rep, I would expect they do all of that, make sure I've given them certain criteria for what a successful project looks like, and then they all manage it to that. Now, I do know, per my conversation with Kraus Anderson, that there is two versions of the construction manager at risk contract that is now out there. And we have the first version. There is a second version which has some nuances to it. So I don't know if that second version will bring more of what we're looking into, you know, for that aspect, but I don't know. Right now, I will tell you, I'm spending a lot of time on this project, following through on, you know, the standard project management criteria that you do when you're managing a construction project. So, you know, I planned for that, so that was my intention, but, you know, if you have a really good, like, it would be hiring a consultant essentially to expand my capacity, that once I get a project off and running with the funding, then I turn it over to this consultant who manages it for me going forward. You know, that's how I view this, is that it would be more that than me actually running the project, but, again, is that, you know, this is like hiring a second me, right, this service agreement right now. So, to your point, Roger, if we're both doing all the same things, that is the redundant department, yeah. So I'm gonna try really hard to, you know, evaluate that as we move through this. You know, at the city right now, I've been here 2 years, we haven't done, this is the first project like this that I've done. But I have, you know, as we're doing housing and some of the other projects, we have hired consultants to manage certain parts of those projects for us. So it just depends on how we move forward as we navigate this. And my, you know, my focus is always to not spend $1 twice, and also not spend $1 more than I have to. And that was, I think the mayor alluded to my conversations over and over again of, you know, I'm not gonna pay for one more thing than I have to. So, because what that is that's this board paying that money, right? And our taxpayers, it's not me. You know, so my job is to steward that as carefully as I can, and then bring you good things. So that you make those decisions and do a good job, you know, with good information in front of you, so. Long rambling answer to the, why are we doing this, but I hope I covered.
So essentially, your meetings are gonna be for you to check in, update you, what's going
Yes,
on.
yes.
That
Thank you,
I
John.
understand, because the more products we have, we don't have more Betsy's.
Yeah, the less time I'm gonna have for each of them, correct.
I can get on board for that.
Could we have John just answer for me next time, because that was perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep, okay. All right, item number 3, the Heda loan application to the deed 21st Century Mineral Fund for AMGS. This is when we have this approved at the IRRR, they have portioned it out 50% to the Douglas Johnson Fund that they control, and 50% to the Minnesota Deed 21st Century Mineral Fund that Minnesota Deed controls. That requires just a separate application, but the IRRR is working with me to get that filed. So I do need your authorization to apply for those funds for that 50%. So you'll see in that application tonight that it is page 4, that the 4.5 million comes from the 21st Century Fund, 4.5 million comes from the IRRR, and then there's two $300,000 grants, one from the IRRR and one from the 21st Century Fund as well. So per that information about paying for those soft costs, this is how I'm working on doing that. Any questions on doing that 50% share out there? The funds will all come into the IRRR and they will administer facilitating all of the construction draws. So I won't be sending, and Sheena won't be sending information to two different places to get the money. The IRRR will administer the full 9 million, but, you know, this is two separate pots of funding at the state, so we do have to do the second application. So that's in your packet tonight. Any questions on that one? Excellent, all right. Item number 4 then is I have Benchmark Engineering here to present the parking study memo that they have drafted for us. We kicked this off last August and work with Benchmark. We have two gentlemen here. Alan Johnson is the principal and Alan Nelson is one of their newer engineers who's been working on this project for us. We've done a lot of work with Benchmark on surveying and a few other things, so they did this study for us. They've come back with a draft memo. And now what we need to do in our workshop is talk about what kind of next steps we want to go through. They do mention some potential options in here, but we're not making decisions tonight. We're just going to listen to the presentation because it's fairly new to all of us, so we wanted them to come and talk it through for you. So, gentlemen?
So I'm Alan Johnson. Do you guys have a copy of this study?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Yes. So I'll just kind of run through the highlights of this, assuming some of you have read this already. First, we did a survey with the help of the Chamber of Commerce, City Hibbing, and we reached out to all the business owners on the 1 through 800 block on Howard Street and kind of compiled some information based off of that. And really what it showed is there's a demand on every one of the blocks for some additional parking, especially when you get to like the 300 block and the 500 block, which show some pretty good demands. And these are more probably what I would call like your peak demands. We didn't have 100% response on the survey. We had to make some assumptions, but the basis shows the kind of the areas where parking is needed the most. In this survey analysis, I guess stuff is kind of in the back end of the appendix, broke down for you as well. Then taking that information, we kind of went with it to how could we improve the parking on these couple of blocks. And one of the more popular options to talk about is tiered parking. So we kind of summarized that in this report. This is more like getting a parking permit system, more enforcement of 2-hour parking, keep the people moving off the street. We have a map, kind of, this is just a concept of how maybe a tiered system could work within the city. Alan Nelson here did quite a bit of work on where some of these areas are that are a little bit more high demand parking, that then would kind of be premium spots, and then you could have more of the just regular 2-hour spots where they could buy a permit to park. And that would really help keeping customers moving through, and then like employees and businesses could have more parking permits to be exempt from some of these. I guess it'd be one way to look at it. This is up to obviously the city of Hibbing EDA, how you guys want to move ahead on that. And then the third option, it would be, their second option would be buying some vacated properties to build some parking. We did show an example of some of that in the appendix of this. There's a conceptual parking lot where you could add up to 68 stalls, and it could be like a permitted type parking in that parking lot. There's probably some other properties there as well. I know there's some, if you look at a Google Earth or Maps aerial view, there's other parking, but it's private. Some of it's signed private, so you can't always count on that being available for other businesses other than the current business owner. And then the last thing, kind of summarizing through this, I guess, is doing like a road diet. We suggested that the road diet is just a term, like an engineering term for taking a road and condensing it down and getting more multi-use out of it, which would mean maybe going back to a diagonal parking. I think that was something that was done previously along Howard Street. There could be some side diagonal parkings. The problem with doing that is there's some state aid funds potentially that could be compromised. It's a state aid road, I believe, city state aid funds used through improvements throughout the city, that them things need to be looked into as well, rather than just jumping to make a decision that, hey, we need to look at a diagonal parking, fit as many possible cars in here. But then also you have to, from an engineering perspective, we're always looking out for the safety and welfare. And so a traffic study would be kind of implemented as a next step item if that's something that should be pursued. And that would deal with looking at traffic counts, turning movements, the signalized intersections. How could these be changed and modified to fit more parking along that route is one of the options. And that traffic study would more not only look out for safety of pedestrians and parking, but the flow through out that downtown corridor. And I guess I kind of just summarized through this real quickly, try to answer any questions. And me and Alan here both worked on this. He did a lion's share of the work, to be honest, so I kind of brought him with too to talk about it as well, so. Yeah.
So as far as, not that I'm saying I'm for or against for the diagonal parking idea, what's it gonna look like on the width of the road coming through?
So again, it's because it's a state aid road, I believe, it'd have to meet the municipal state aid standards to be eligible for funding. There's a process you go through when you're changing that. You can apply for variances through the state aid system. It's not a for sure thing. But because of the signalized intersections as well, it brings into two things that you can't just go and switch turn lanes. There's gotta be proper distances on the turn lanes. You've gotta have the right lane separations. One of the things, like, you can do some lane narrowing. There might be some pretty wide throw lanes in there right now, but a traffic study would look at all them features, how we could shorten things up to make them and minimize them, I guess, as much as possible to maximize the parking and or other features that are needed in that downtown corridor. I don't know if I talked in circles on that or if you
Kind of.
answered.
So what would we be left with as far as point A to point B going across the road if we ran in diagonal?
Sure, so you might end up with slightly smaller sidewalks. That's one of the things. Typically, you could get a smaller, narrower through lane. Right now, I believe there's a center turn lane in most of it. What I refer to usually as a suicide lane. But there's not typically them turnoffs everywhere in there. So some of that center lane would be more a center line and the diagonal could be off to the edges is probably how that, if that concept was pursued, some of it could be utilized as the road surface, but the diagonal parking would come out further from the curb line is probably how that outcome would look. I don't have a picture of it drawn, but it's something that could be considered.
So with the tiered parking, you obviously get, or the angled parking, you get a lot more, you're able
Yes.
to utilize a lot more space.
Correct.
But it's probably a
Right.
lot more hazardous. That's my issue, is
Exactly.
Yeah,
the danger
that's-
part, like
Right,
I dread going to Virginia because when I back out,
right,
you're backing out blind. If you, I mean,
Right.
you got a big vehicle next to you,
Yeah.
that's the only downfall.
right.
Yeah.
that I
And
see
you,
with it.
did you say that the sidewalks might be slightly
Narrower.
more narrow? Because several years ago, we redid Howard Street
They're all
and took
pretty narrow.
everything out, the trees and everything, to make it more ADA compliant and accessible. Just putting that out there, so we really want to make sure that our community continues to be walkability study that we're doing and everything else.
Historically, Hibbing was diagonal parking. That's what originally, if you look at the original
I think it's-
plans and the old photographs, but your vehicles weren't the size they are now. So, you know, there's no way to widen other than what you mentioned. If you narrow your sidewalks by 2 feet, you can gain 4 feet, but, you know, what's your cost difference? Diagonal is nice. We did it by offsetting at the Memorial Building. It does add a lot more parking. It's amazing. More than doubled your. But it is, I agree with what John said, it is dangerous backing out. You know, the advantage is that's not a main, even though we get state aid, because it used to be 169, you know, it isn't anymore. The Beltline handles the volume of our fast-moving traffic, but, so,
I would think diagonal parking also is more of an issue with snow removal, because you can go around a car that's parked parallel.
yeah.
Right.
So if it's parked diagonally, there goes the whole, you know,
Yeah.
shooting match
Yeah, I
until
think it's,
Yeah,
Jack and Don's
it
gets over
definitely tightens things up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I guess those are just all things we have to consider.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
are we
probably
moving
the-
forward, or?
Madam President, members of the board. So, as our engineering team has come forward and said, there's lots of things to consider, no easy answers, but definitely a parking need. You can see that there's a parking deficit in certain blocks. We've all experienced it. So it's not just a perception, it's a reality. Now what we need to do is the next steps. They've recommended in this study that we probably would do a parking study, a traffic study to look through how the semaphores and the intersections work, how flow works. Is that center turn lane essential? What does it look like with diagonals? I'm guessing that they would bring in best practices, and is it a perception of danger backing up, or is it reality? Kind of like they have all of this data now around J-turns and, you know, all of those things, right? So there's gonna be a lot more information that we can get in the next step. So in workshop, we'll talk a little bit about what that could look like, but I wanted both our residents who watch this meeting and all of you to be aware of, you know, this parking study has been done. There's a memo drafted. There's some possible solutions. No easy answers, no easy choices right now, but we'll probably put this out on the website. And, you know, folks we have a comment, I don't know, there's a comment form on our website right now, right, Greg, where, you know, people can offer project suggestions and things. So people can look at this. If they have additional thoughts, they can send them our way, but just know that we will be doing some next steps. This was just the first step to get started. So that's my take on it.
Who would be having the final say on this? It wouldn't be the EDA board, would it be the council?
Right, I
It
was
wouldn't
gonna,
City council.
yeah, are you gonna bring it to the
Probably
council?
city council, yeah,
But-
yeah, because to Alan's point, we'll have to request some information from MinDOT, do these qualify for state aid funds. You know, our city engineer is aware of this. We've already talked to PD as well. So they've looked at this. Our chamber is aware. We've talked to our chamber president and the board, letting them know that we were having this done. So they'll get to look at it, weigh in as well. This initial study came from the survey that the chamber had conducted a couple years ago. So, you know, this is continued efforts to understand more about what our residents and our businesses are telling us and being actionable with that information.
So, Betsy?
Yes.
Do you think then, before you roll it out on the website and everything, that you bring it to the city council first?
Absolutely, we could toss it on the agenda and talk about it there. Yep. Thank you very much. I always, you know, you are my board, so I come to you. But, yes.
I wouldn't mind seeing, and I don't know, I think I've seen it in other cities where one half street's diagonal, one half is parallel. And see, you know, just because of the width, because you gain about 5 feet by doing that. So just thinking, because it really does add a lot of parking.
And I will add, that just talking about parking, yes, I know downtown Virginia's got some diagonal, they've got some parallel. As an example, I believe you guys had diagonal when I looked back at some historical. This City of Park Rapids has parking in the center. I don't know that that's a state aid route, but if it was a local street, it's something that could be looked at as well. That can certainly add another level of pedestrian safety and things, concerns like that as far as mobility, access to a vehicle and stuff when it's parked out in the middle. But traffic counts, I think, really help determine which blocks or if it's evenly distributed straight through traffic, a lot of turning movements, that kind of things, all play into the safety of not only people driving and trying to find a spot to park, but the people walking and biking and, you know, trying to be accessible community. That's the kind of the movement a lot of towns are taking. So there's a lot to it, not just, yeah, we can fit it in here, but let's not do it and find out the consequences.
right.
So,
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for
yep.
coming forward.
And if you need us to come to the city council, I'd certainly be happy to come try to answer questions there or help. Sometimes just understand it. Just let me know and happy to run over.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say, that's not something I can answer, and I know, you know, Jesse has weighed in and such too, so we've had some good dialogue on this, so thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Awesome. All right, so Madam President, those are my presentations for tonight. Got his water bottle. Thanks.
Okay, so then we can move on to the board reports, I guess. Hey?
Yep.
Sheena?
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Within your packet, you will see a request from Brianna Clemens. She's the owner of Mike's Pub, to disperse loan funds prior to obtaining her life insurance policy. She has been working towards getting the policy since she knew that it was part of her loan agreement. However, the life insurance company is requiring medical history and also a physical prior to issuing the policy. She cannot get all this completed prior to the expiration date of her grant funding, which is 6/30 of 2024. So she reached out to me and asked if there was any way she could draw the funds for the HVAC units that A1 Refrigeration needs to get the down payment on so that they can order the units, and then she would avoid losing her grant funds. So I guess I'm bringing this before you tonight to see if the board would approve drawing the amounts needed to not lose her grant funds prior to that 6/30 deadline, which would not be that full $50,000 loan. It would just be the ones that have the grant match.
And what would be the total that we would have to?
She said for them to order that, it would be $7,050 that he needed in order to make the order for the materials.
So that's the number we're looking for to approve tonight, then?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll
Okay.
second.
We do have a motion by Member Schweiberger and seconded by Mayor Hyduk to authorize the Heda loan disbursements for Mike's Pub for $7,050. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to B.
Item B, I also have a letter within your packet. It was a request from Kevin from National Bank of Commerce to subordinate our loan that we have with the Iron House in the amount of $100,000. We are currently in second position behind National Bank of Commerce, who has a mortgage on the property for $41,200. Now Iron House is obtaining additional lending of $150,000. $100,000 of that would be for building improvements and $50,000 would be for working capital. National Bank of Commerce is requesting that we move our mortgage in the third position so that this new loan that they are issuing would be in the second position. I did also receive a report that's within your packet. It's an evaluation report. It shows that the property is valued at $351,000. The total debt with ours as well as National Bank of Commerce's would be $291,000, so there would still be room to lend on the loan. In addition to that, I just wanted to note that all three partners of the Iron House have all signed personal guarantees guaranteeing that the debt would be paid back when we initially did the loan agreement. So I'm asking for approval of the subordination agreement for Iron House. They also are in the audience, so I'm sure they could answer any questions on the project or anything on the subordination if you'd like them to.
What is the dollar amount we're looking at?
100.
It's $100,000 is our loan with them, so we would be third position on the mortgage, but we also have those personal guarantees.
And we'd be moving into the third position.
That's correct.
Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
I guess the only question I'd ask, where are you at with the project?
You want to step,
I tried to look, but there was paper on there.
On purpose.
Members, we're about 90% done. We're in the mercy of the state, approving a couple drawings that we have. And so, once we get that, we just have to build out a bar. We're right there.
and when are you anticipating an open date?
we anticipated that the state was gonna be done with these drawings. We were told by our architect it was gonna be 2 to 3 weeks, and we're 7 weeks out. And so, we had an initial soft opening that we were planning on doing. It was, last weekend. So now we're just kinda on hold, and I'm assuming it's gonna probably be after the Jubilee. This is kinda our new vision of when we're gonna.
I'm sorry that the timeframe isn't working out for that, but, Madam President, I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor by Member Hoffman Sockman, and we have a second by Member Kivala to authorize the subordination agreement for the Iron House for the $100,000 loan. Is there any further discussion?
Madam President, if I may? Member, or Freeman's and Luke, if you want, this board does like to tour buildings before they're done. So I just gently suggest.
Yes, and I think it would be very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we can definitely extend an invitation. Everything is literally up and running, and we've gotten to use all of the different tools and entertainment options, and a lot of fun.
Oh, that's,
We can't wait to have you there.
And I was gonna say, I know you're not probably there from 8 to 4 every day, so, you know, if we could get something scheduled, we'll toss it on our next agenda to approve, and then they could come by.
Absolutely.
We actually discussed with our soft opening that Fridays, we were gonna do friends and family, and then on the Saturday, we were gonna extend it out to the contractors and the city workers that were.
okay. That's great. I think it's an awesome addition. I mean, we need, you know, especially something for kids to do. That's huge for the community, so thank you for thinking of that idea. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
you,
guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming in. Okay. Now we're on to the HEDA loan update. Sheena.
I handed out tonight, an updated spreadsheet of the loan balances as of today. I don't really have too much to add. Fortunately, most of our loans are all current and up to date. I did want to note that those two that were approved at the last meeting to be sent to Range Credit Bureau have been sent over to them for collections. Also that we have received a letter from Moxie that she is looking to dissolve her business, and I know that there's like 50% off sales and things going on in her business. We did receive also an envelope with payments through July, so she is trying to use the money that she's making on selling that inventory at reduced price to pay back her debt, so that was part of her letter to us. Other than that, we've had a few additional draws that you will see. Iron House had done their last draw, so now they're up to their full loan amount of $100,000. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot to add. The loan balances are on the second page that we have in our cash balances. It's just over $1.4 million of cash in the 3 revolving loan funds. And then we do have some loans that have been approved and they still have not been drawn on, which is just under $400,000. So we have a little over $1 million to lend to prospective businesses in Hibbing. So I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Looks good.
Thank you, Sheena.
Anybody else have any questions for Sheena? Okay. So then we can move on to number 2. Betsy, the community, or the A, approve the draft.
So at this time, we do not have a draft GMP, because the memo is not ready. That will be prepared and before you at the beginning of August. As the gentleman talked about while they were here, there are 2 pieces of that schedule that we will need to discuss, and come to agreement with our funder. The first one is ordering the PEMB before the GMP is signed. At this point, we have not received approval for that. But there are a couple of extenuating circumstances on that, so we are going to meet with our funder to see if they will, make an allowance for that, and I will keep you posted, because our next meeting is July 15th. and that would still be 2 weeks past, this meeting. So all loans have been approved to this point, and typically, if your bank has approved the loan, you can start doing the construction draws. But we have to make that one last hurdle for our funder to agree to that particular item. The other item is that the schedule that they presented tonight shows a delay of the substantial completion date from March 25th, 2025 to April 25th, 2025, and that also needs to be approved by the owners group. And at this time, I do not have the rest of the owners in agreement on that. So, you've seen the schedule and the adjustments, but those are the things that I'm managing as far as the schedule. So that's why we will not be approving a GMP tonight, because I do not have it in front of you.
I will say part of the schedule they promised, it's hard to do.
Yes.
And they put themselves kind of out there when they said, oh, we'll have it done, but there's too many variables. And they were the only contractor that answered that question,
Yes.
which, I'm just throwing it out there for future because
Agreed.
it was almost like a trick question on a test. Because their answer should have been depending on da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, because they've done a lot of buildings in their time.
I would agree. And so,
Whereas others did not answer it or answered it with a later date. And our committee that reviewed that disqualified them as being in contention, basically. They didn't recommend them because of that.
yes.
And these guys were recommended because they were the only ones that had that date.
Which is why I haven't agreed, the owners group hasn't come to an agreement with it yet and brought you a full schedule to approve with that change, right? The schedule that you approved prior had the substantial completion date on the date we requested.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask you to approve a shift to that schedule yet until I know exactly what the extenuating circumstances are, and are they things that can be accommodated from the rest of the owners group? Then I'll bring you back something that you can approve.
Madam
So I
President?
think,
No, go ahead.
I think the big, like what we're hearing is you can throw any date out, right? So I mean, let's maybe not have that be such a weight on yes or no. Because you can throw any number out and after you're chose, and it's all irrelevant.
Right, and that wasn't the extenuating circumstance for being chosen or not, but it
No,
was,
but
yes,
it's a
it was
factor,
in
it
the
weighs,
factor.
yeah,
Yep.
it weighs into the whole scale of things, right?
Yep, so put a little bit less weight on that and a little bit more weight on some of the other factors.
I think that'd be good.
Yep, I'm
Yeah,
hearing you,
good point.
hearing you loud and clear.
Jennifer?
Thank you. So, on page 4 that you had us look at, that was, the total project investment was 9.6. Ross Anderson's total project costs are 9. Where's the why is there a $600,000 difference?
That was,
Am I missing something here?
was it the 5% from each side?
Is it the 5% to the 5% contingent, the contingency and the construction? Is that what's that making that up?
No, there's architecture fees, which are part of the soft costs, in addition to the construction manager at risk fees, which are part of the soft costs. And then also, and they knew I had one $300,000 grant. They did not know we were applying for a second. So yes, my funding will be two $4.5 million loans and two $300,000 grants. The second one is not guaranteed at this point. So if I have it, it will go towards the rest of the soft costs. Is that?
That's my, okay.
Yes, okay.
I couldn't figure that out.
I had to think it through
Yeah,
a little
okay.
bit close.
Thank
Yep,
you, thank
because
you.
you're taking the 21st century and this one and putting them together. Thank you, Jennifer, yes.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so item B is to approve the owner's representative service agreement with Bar Engineering. So I would ask for approval for that tonight.
I'll make a motion.
Or,
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk and supported by Member Schweiberger. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And then item C is to I'm requesting approval for the Heda loan application to the 21st Century Mineral Fund for that project for the 4.5 million plus the $300,000 grant.
And that is what we discussed earlier.
Yep.
We have a motion to approve this HEDA loan to the Mindeed 21st Century Mineral Fund.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Member Hoffman Sockman. Supported by Vice President Drainus. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and that's it for you, Betsy?
Yes.
Okay, so now I would like to entertain a motion to go into a closed session for the purpose of the real property, parcels 140-0070-01480, 140-0070-01500, and 140-0070-01510 pursuant to the Minnesota State Section 13D. And we have, I'm sorry, we had a motion made by Member Kivela and supported by Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion on our closed session? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So we will go into closed session. Okay, we are back from our discussions of the real property. And we are looking for a motion to allow Betsy to continue to negotiate for the purchase of the property. And these property parcels are 140-0070-01480, 140-0070-01500, and 140-0070-01510. And we are looking for those for, we're gonna allow Betsy to continue to negotiate for that with the terms and conditions. Do we have a motion to allow her to continue to negotiate?
So moved.
Moved by Member Kivela. Supported by Vice President Drainus. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes our HEDA meeting for tonight.
I'll make a
So,
motion for
motion
adjournment.
to adjourn. Motion to adjourn made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Member Schweiberger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.